Talking with Words.
Welcome back to Talking with Words. You're here with Rob,
Adam,
James, and Alan.
And Ryan.
Nice of you to include him.
Alan.
There he is. What are you kids doing on my lawn? Tonight, we're going to watch the 2017, I believe. Yes. The movie version, I guess, if you want to call it that, of The Dark Tower, based on Stephen King's The Dark Tower. Based, loosely. Well, I'm going to read the movie description, and we'll talk about that after. There's going to be a lot of Dark Tower discord in this, as three of us have read all of them. Some of us multiple times. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. A boy haunted by visions of a dark tower from a parallel reality teams up with the tower's delusioned guardian to stop an evil warlock known as the Man in Black, who plans to use the boy to destroy the tower and open the gates of hell.
Shit.
Well, I guess it's not really that far off in the book.
I mean, just jump straight to the chase.
This stars Idris Elba, Matthew McConaughey, Tom Taylor, Dennis Haysbert's in it. Who else was the other? Oh, Jackie Earle Haley's in it. Delightful. Abby Lee. You know, Peoples.
People.
Surprised Stephen King's not in it. Little cameo.
He didn't Stan Lee the shit out of that?
No.
Damn it.
I'm surprised he didn't sue to get his name off of it.
He's done it before.
Yes, he has.
The creator who hates his own creation.
Yeah. I guess we could do the Parents Guide.
This thing's PG-13.
There you go.
What?
So we don't need a Parents Guide? Since it's PG-13?
I mean,
Yeah, moderate.
Looking for it.
no sex
Moderate.
and nudity.
No sex and nudity.
Moderate
None.
violence and gore. Profanity mild.
Mild.
Alcohol, drugs, and smoking mild.
Mild.
Frightening and intense scenes.
Mode.
Moderate.
Moderate.
Yeah.
Yep.
I didn't know you had PG-13 movies in this house.
I've
Damn it.
Charlie's got to watch something.
Touche.
I don't want to say anything yet because this movie is...
This was a long-awaited movie for
That's a
some
good-
of us. And
A lot of development hell with
Yeah.
this because it's such a big story to tell. So we'll watch it. I know James has been eager to see it, or
I've been building toward
Curious.
this. I read the series in prep for this podcast.
you start with the extra mile.
I did.
And Ryan, have you seen this?
Nope.
Okay, perfect. Alan?
I have seen it.
Leave me alone, I'm pooping.
It's quite warm.
I wish you could see him. I might get a picture of Alan in his blanket, cozied up. I need to get you some hot cocoa. I will. Okay, let's watch this movie. All right, that was the Dark Tower movie. There might be a slight shift in energy coming out of that.
Wow.
James, you've read the books, but this is your first time with the movie.
The movie may have forgotten the face of its father.
Oh, that's
Have-
perfect.
have we prefaced what the movie came from? I know we talked about watching The Dark Tower earlier in the intro. Have we talked about what it is and what it symbolizes?
I want to kind of go through the movie as its own thing real quick,
Gotcha.
and then
Fair
we'll
enough.
talk about the things that added. There are the things that were included, and then the obviously omitted or just completely changed for film's sake.
Yeah.
I do not blame the actors for the script they were handed.
Sure, absolutely. Just a real quick backstory. This is originally the Dark Tower in general is a Stephen King.
It's the king of verse, essentially.
It's the king of verse. It's his like massive oeuvre, his huge story. So this is 7 books, 8? Something like
7
that.
core books.
Yeah, so 7 core books. There's additives. They made a comic book series. The Dark Tower is a thing for anyone who does not know. This is a very, very deep and rich thing, very similar to Tolkien. Lord of the Rings and other big series. So this is a standalone film, and now we're going to talk about the film.
That'll work. Well, first of all, Ryan, did you watch it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm still not entirely sure what I saw, but yeah.
Yeah, I always wonder if you haven't read the books, how much you get out of this, because anything that is in there extra is for King fans. Not even Dark Tower, just King fan. I'll get into some of that in a little bit. But this is the love letter to King in a shape of the Dark Tower.
Huh. Because there was like several things you guys were referencing beforehand from reading the books, which I haven't read, that never showed up in the film.
Yeah, nothing from the books really shows up in the film. I mean,
Like-
they show up, but they don't show up.
Like the name Eddie.
Susanna. Oi.
Oh, dim.
Roland's first love.
So some names.
Yeah.
Well, okay, let's walk through. Let's just go ahead and fucking do it because a warning, we're going to go into spoilers.
It's going to be
This
weird.
has been out for 20 years. This is just
Yeah.
turn it off if you don't want to hear it and never read the book still.
Indeed.
But if you haven't read the books and you're thinking about it, just go read the books.
Read the
Yeah.
books.
They're amazing. Jesus, this movie. I want to preface this with I followed the. I know Adam probably did too. Followed the build up for this like a super fan. You know, cast Idris Elba. I was super excited.
For sure.
Matthew McConaughey. I could see it. I liked the look that they ended up going with for him. Since they were making him more human than Midworld E. But the idea, or at least my understanding of the idea of this movie, is this is after book 7. So Roland in the books, again, super spoilers.
Massive spoilers. If you haven't read the series, go read it, and then
I'm going to give you a second just to turn it off. Or crash your car. If you're in a car, crash your car, make your radio, get out of the car, make sure you're okay, then call 911, then go read the 7 King books, then come back and listen to this podcast. Okay. So the book follows Roland and his quartet, which is his tribe of Jake, who's in the movie, Jake's pet Oi, who it's very Wizard of Oz. They all kind of come together over the course of this. Eddie, a heroin addict that gets clean when he's pulled into Midworld, and he becomes a gunslinger. He's Roland's right-hand man, along with
a New Jersey boy.
along with a black woman from the
60s?
decade? 60s?
Yeah, she's
Late
from the
60s.
Martin Luther King era.
That's right. She's missing both of her legs from above the knee.
Yep.
And she is, when you meet her, in a wheelchair, and she's either rich, Karen, but also kleptomaniac stuff, or she's another person that's in her head because she has split personality, who is
she has
Detta,
multiple personality disorder.
who is a nasty hoe. I think that's what she described herself as multiple times.
And we don't see her in this movie
no.
at all.
No, in the books, that's the group, that's the core, that's the quartet.
They really focused on just Jake and Roland for the movie, which was a clear, important relationship in the series. So I understand if you're subtracting down to a 2-hour script, I can see how they arrived at those two characters alone.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's fair.
And again, originally this was going to be 3 movies and 2 seasons of television. So you were going to have...
It was
Really? I did not know that.
That was later.
This was the first part, right?
No, I think this was a separate beast. I think the unaired pilot, when that happened,
that was going to be...
that was going to be the movies to TV to movies to TV. I think this, in 2017, this was before all that.
Then I like this movie way less.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so the things that happen in the book, this quartet, this big group, this massive epic, this 7 to 8 book spanning epic, condensed into one movie. And we minimalize the characters.
So much.
Yeah.
And we made it PG-13 for some reason.
Yeah, well, it
That's
was
fair.
it was YA. At the
Roland
time.
had a lot of sex.
And just how brutal the books are. There's not good stuff happening. Pretty much ever.
Well, and James had mentioned earlier off camera, off recording, how much he loves Tolkien's Lord of the Rings and his thoughts on some of the Lord of the Rings films. They're still faithful adaptations. Whether you love the actors, the writing, whatever or not, they're faithful.
And
It's a faithful adaptation. This is subpar, to say the least, for an adaptation of The Dark Tower.
yeah, it deserved at least 4 hours. I mean, without even taking it to Tolkien levels of commitment, you could have at least done 2 movies, 3 movies of normal length without the director's cut of, Peter Jackson. So,
You want a Snyder Tower?
yeah,
The Snyder Cut.
17 hours later.
yeah, they could have included a lot more elements than they did, and the story is a little more one-dimensional because of that, because just the depth of characters was not there. But it's still a good story. I don't want to discount that at all. It's an interesting story to tell, but there's just so much more from all of us who read the books and came to this point that it's a letdown in several ways.
The thing that I'll say to that is, like, we talked about this as soon as the movie came on. This is like I don't want to say a victim. I don't want to focus on the negative here. But
Fair,
this is a product of its time as well.
Of
This is what,
course.
2017?
Yeah.
So 2017, think about what we had back then. We had the King Renaissance. Everything was going on. Things that did work, this is pre-COVID. This is before Game of Thrones was big. Is this before streaming was massive?
Absolutely, 2017.
Before it's as big as it is now.
As big as it is.
But we
now.
still
Yeah,
had
it's still
Game of
pretty big.
Thrones.
We
We had
were-
Marvel Universe coming out.
Yeah, Marvel was.
We were into the streaming world, but
So
it was all Netflix and Amazon Prime.
Yeah, and I caught major, like, just from the title sequence and things like that. I caught major, like, Matrix vibes, like trying to do an airy kind of. We mentioned David Lynch earlier. I wish this was David Lynch, but
Some damn fine coffee.
well, I want to compare it to The Matrix, but The Matrix got 3 movies. This got 1.
The Matrix had 4 movies,
Well,
James.
arguably.
I forgot all about it too.
We did a podcast on it.
I know,
that
that's even
never
worse.
aired.
He said 3, and I was like, "Yep, there's 3 of them." Then he said that, I was like, "Oh shit!" I had
Yeah.
a revelation.
yeah, I think we were joking earlier. This is like the Super Mario movie of the games, and this is the Dark Tower version.
Yeah,
of-
this is the Dark Tower Super Mario. But
John
Acting's
Leguizamo
good.
was phenomenal.
well, I
in
like
Super
the
Mario
acting
Brothers.
and the casting.
His birthday was today or yesterday. It's like
yes-
John Leguizamo, 63.
yesterday or yeah. Anyway,
Sorry.
I like Adam said it while we were watching the show. I would cast these people again, if nothing else, just to be close to that character or do something in that universe again. I thought Idris Elba was a great choice.
Yeah,
they
the cast was great.
they didn't really do any of them justice as far as the book to film. I think because, and if I'm remembering correctly, in the book, Roland also had kind of given up on the tower and was going after Walter, and that's where you started, and then he swore his oath or whatever to the tower later on.
Well, that was like book 2
Well,
of the 7.
Right.
Well, the other thing was the tower was always the thing, right? So just a real quick backstory for anybody who's a fan of the series.
I like that this is going to be
Super
10
quick.
minutes of conversation.
I
more
want this to
backstory.
be super quick. So in book 4 is kind of like a flashback book, and that's the book where, like, it's a flashback to when Roland the gunslinger was younger. Towards the end of that book, that's when we get the epiphany of like the tower. The tower is all. I have to make it to the tower. So everything else becomes arbitrary. But that's essentially the beginning. And then the first book in the series, Roland is after the Man in Black, but that coincides with his mission to the Dark Tower.
Right.
And then at the end of that book, he has this meeting, which in the book it's called Palaver, with the Man in Black. And then afterwards, he realizes, like, I already found the Man in Black. I've had my meeting, and there's nothing left but the tower. And the tower is all. And that's his mission from book 1.
Because the tower is endangered. I mean, that's the storyline, is that the tower must be rescued for most of the series. That's where we're headed. It's like all the forces are gathering to destroy the beams that support the tower, and the tower is going to fall. We don't know what's going to happen if the tower falls. There's a lot of conjecture about what would happen. The universe might end if the tower falls. So there were huge stakes involved in the series.
Eternal Darkness is better than this.
Rob,
Outside of Roland's story, although as we come to find out, the story is just Roland.
Well, let's take a second real quick. Rob, you are the man to talk about this. This movie is called The Dark Tower. You're talking about beams. We're talking about the books. We're talking about the movie.
Mm-hmm.
What is The Dark Tower?
Good question.
So I see it as the spinning top essentially is what the Dark Tower is. It's not really a solid entity or anything on its own. It has to feed off of something. The top's inertia. This is, I don't know if you want to just call it, the white, which is what they refer to it sometimes as.
A structure in the center of the universe.
Yeah, that holds everything together. And they did the imagery of that fine, but they never really got into, which King never really got into, how the beams were made, how the tower, that's okay. It exists. We need to protect it. That is what a gunslinger is supposed to do. They're super cops from the however many millennium in the future, as far as we can tell from the books. And their role is to keep the top spinning so that the world doesn't.
Anyone listening right now, if you're not familiar with the Dark Tower, look up Michael Whelan art and look up Michael Whelan's Dark Tower.
Yeah.
And that is what you're going to want to reference, because that dude did a lot of the Stephen King artwork for the books, the illustrations, and he made it fantastically perfect. Like, that's what I imagine whenever I'm seeing
Was he the author? Was he the artist referenced in the series? Because at one point there's a picture.
That's Patrick Danville.
Okay, yeah, there was a picture referenced in the book of the Dark Tower that Roland is like, yeah, that's the Dark Tower.
So Patrick Danville is a character from the book Insomnia. That's the thing about
Which
the
I've never read.
Kingiverse.
Yeah.
I remember when I was convincing Adam to read this, and I was like, you're going to have to read this, and then you're going to have to read these other 14 books. And then you're going to have to read these other 3 books so that those 14 books work, because you don't need it, but it's just a richer universe that, it's like Marvel or DC. You get all the little things that you don't see in the main storyline.
Yeah.
And it's a great way that he did this, with the Dark Tower being the center of all universes, and he writes the other universes.
And that's why it's so unsettling that they just settled on a 2-hour version of stuff.
Hour and 35 minutes.
It's.
I mean, any one book in the series was worth a movie.
Yeah, and those adaptations are going to come. Like the joy in those adaptations, I think, is in front of us, which I am happy about. I don't want this podcast to just be like all negativity, because there are some things that this movie did accomplish. Like Rob mentioned earlier, the cast. I think we all agree to an extent that, like, the cast was great.
Oh, absolutely.
The only
I loved what they did in this movie. Each individual actor contributing to what the story was.
yeah.
They definitely were there for it.
I do think that the Jake character was cast a little old.
Well,
I
that's
think
because they did reshoots with 2-year-older Jake.
that
Allegedly.
at the end possibly.
Allegedly.
Jake in the books is very much, and I hate to keep referencing the books, and I'm sorry, but like that's just my canon.
I think we have to, given the briefness of the movie. You got to reference the book.
I think Jake is what, like 12. Stephen King likes to have like 12-year-olds on these
along that
massive
order.
adventures.
I mean,
Something definitely happened in his life when he was 12 that shaped his reality.
I mean, Jake
Yeah.
in the book is,
Tommy
still
numbers.
of the age whose his biggest relationship is going to be with his pet
yeah.
yeah.
and his
I didn't
father
see a
figure. That was Jake's relationship in the books. He didn't have a little girlfriend. He didn't have anything else going on. He had a best friend, a father figure, and his pet that he loved. And that was Jake's character in the books.
Well, and Jake in this movie is a troubled teen. That sounds pretty relatable.
You know
what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. That was the character for sure.
What teen out there is not a troubled teen? He had a mother. From what you can see, is like the mother is doing the best she can. Is it the new boyfriend?
Yeah.
Is that the gentleman?
Because Jake's dad died in the film.
Yeah, in the film, Jake's dad was deceased, but in the books, Jake's dad was like a television executive, and he
Yep.
was a real shark, like a cocaine hammering son of a
So
bitch.
he's a
you know?
super duper cokehead.
In the book, Jake just leaves his family
Yeah,
because
and Jake's kind of a runaway.
yeah.
And seeking a father figure, and that's why, like in the books, why Roland makes so much sense, because Roland, if you are a Dark Tower head, like Roland does not actually have really great family dynamic. Rob's laughing, but I'm telling you, go read these books.
You talking about his mom?
Yeah, well, I'm talking about mom and dad. So Roland does not have the best upbringing, even though he has all of these things at his disposal that you would think he should. Jake is very similar, and they cross paths along the road. So it makes for a great sequence in the books where Jake is looking for a father figure.
Yep. Along
The way he finds it. I don't want to give anything away because go buy the books, go read them. But in this film, he's not really looking for a father figure, but I guess Roland, Idris Elba fills that role pretty well.
Yeah.
Reluctantly.
Roland was a reluctant father figure.
Yeah, for
Absolutely.
Sure. Well, then you also have the Man in Black, which is Matthew McConaughey's character.
We got more of him in the movie than we did in the book.
He's Walter
I mean,
O'Dim.
we have a lot of impressions of Walter from Roland, but we don't know Roland really or how he interacted with any of the other elements that we see in the movie.
One of the things I question with McConaughey, I love Matthew McConaughey as an actor and a human, a sports fan, all those things. He's been in some of my favorite films over the ages, but I do question: do you think he read The Dark Tower at all, or just the script?
I want to say no, just from how he used. Walter's a showman. In this, he was very quick, deliberate. Walter likes to make a game out of this shit. He enjoys torturing people, and the only time we really saw Walter was when he brings the mom in the room, and he's like really just mind fucking her. He's like, "You did this," right before he kills her, so that Jake has to live through it. Essentially,
Yeah.
he punishes her so that Jake has to watch him punish her. That's like dark as hell if you think about it. What he was doing there. But that's really the only time that he did his thing, the Walter thing.
Well, Walter, and James, you and I were discussing this briefly. Is Walter is not just a Dark Tower figure. For those fans, I guess, King call them constant readers?
Yep.
the constant readers, constant listeners out there, the Dark Tower spans across all of Stephen King's books. Like, they all kind of intertwine. They all like to play with each other. So when you talk about Walter O'Dim, the Man in Black, he has many names. He has Randall Flagg.
Randall Flagg is one of his names.
Um,
Walking Dude.
the Walking Dude. So if you've ever read The Stand, maybe you've seen him before. He has many guys. What was his name in Eyes of the Dragon?
He was Walter.
Yeah, he was Walter in that one. So like,
Consistent.
yeah. So
And the king was Roland. in that
yeah,
one.
different Roland, but it was meant to jack around
Well,
with you.
Let me ask you this. I mean, Jake's mother in this movie, was it really Jake's mother, or was it more of an analogy to Roland's mother from the series? Because the only mother figure we had in the series was Roland's mother, not Jake's mother.
I like that turn.
That's an interesting approach.
I hadn't thought of it that
They
way.
just transferred Roland's mother to Jake's mother for the movie. And
I kind of like
it,
that.
it wasn't as tragic, but the tragedy, the only mother tragedy there was Jake's mother in the movie. And clearly it was Roland's mother from the books.
Man, there's so much to unpack there.
Yeah. So much.
God damn it.
Sorry, brother, I stole it.
So let's run through some of the, and I tried to write as many as I saw down and can remember down. They do a good job of Easter egging the shit out of this movie. And since it is the King universe, I wanted to talk about what we caught. Someone poke Ryan with a stick.
Okay.
I knew you'd take me up on it.
I didn't catch anything because I hadn't read the book.
I know. I'm like, you don't really have anything. You're just listening as well at this point. Sorry, bud.
I mean, I can talk about the movie, but any of the other references.
Well, you'll recognize some, I'm sure.
Well, yeah.
And we had stuff from when he sat down with his therapist. There was a picture of the Overlook Hotel. We had a Pennywise.
Yeah, the Overlook Hotel from The
Oh,
Shining.
I didn't even
From The
notice that.
Shining, yes.
I mean, I don't have my glasses on, but that's not an excuse. Really, that was in the background, the hotel and Pennywise?
There was a camera sweep in the therapist room, and that hotel was on a picture frame. Pennywise was, I think you even said it while we were watching it.
Yeah,
You called
in the
both of
woods.
them out.
Yeah, a Pennywise reference was in Midworld, Roland's World, which kind of doesn't really make any sense, but, we'll give it that. But the Overlook Hotel, that one specifically, I remember that one being in the trailer for this
Yeah, it was.
film
Yeah.
back in like 2016 or early 2017 when this movie was like being promoted. And I remember Rob and I were like, oh, dude, why are they showing the Overlook? Just a simple Easter egg. I think there were references to 19, which is a very Stephen King number that ties heavily into the updated version of The Gunslinger, the original Dark Tower book.
It's 1999.
1919.
Yeah, and then so 1999 was the year that Stephen King got hit by the car or by the van.
Yeah.
That was a life-changing deal for Stephen King. For those of you who do not know, Stephen King wrote a lot of these books. They're Dark Tower. There was a massive break in between a lot of these.
Specifically 4 and 5.
Specifically 4 and 5. I think, what was it, 3 or 4 left on a cliffhanger, and people were like
3 left on a cliffhanger.
like, please don't die. We need you to finish these. Well, he almost died after book 6, and I think that's when he realized time is short, and he really went into overdrive and finished up.
Yeah, he said as much in the
he pretty much
preface.
says it. Yeah.
So one of the things that King wrote into the book, there is a litany of things that I would love to talk about tonight about those books. We could go into hard detail, but we're not going to because I want you to read the books. But the number 19 holds very big significance in this series, and I highly recommend you read The Gunslinger.
It was either book 6 or book 7. I don't remember exactly, but that was where Stephen King made the unusual step of writing himself into the books,
Yeah.
which you don't see in the movie.
Yeah.
Well,
They're budgetary constraints
And if I was Stephen King, I wouldn't license that anyway.
yeah.
Leave me out of this.
yeah.
Yeah. But another cool thing in this movie that you'll see early on are people walking down the street. Like Jake, the child Jake in this film, he's kind of flipping out because he thinks he's seeing things that not an ordinary teenager would see. And he keeps seeing these people like shifting their heads around, and you can see these like weird seams on their necks. And those are references to Tahin, which are characters that wear, they wear the skin of humans or whatever.
Yeah, they have like skin masks. They're essentially rodents or animal people
Yeah.
that wear skin masks. I think Mission Impossible.
Yeah, so it's like disguises. And then there's one point that I've seen this movie before, but I never noticed it until this viewing. But there's one man on the corner. Jake is standing on a street corner, and he looks up at this like bald-headed guy, and the bald-headed guy like looks at Jake. They make eye contact, and he kind of like ruffles his coat, like straightens his coat. And I noticed that he's wearing a yellow coat. And that's a reference to a Stephen King book called Low Men in Yellow Coats.
Oh, low men.
And the low men are like
Low
the
men
Tahin,
are
those-
referenced in the series
Yeah.
for Dark Tower as well.
for the Dark Tower, and is specifically for a character named what's the old guy's name in
Ted Brodigan.
Ted Brodigan, that will show up much later on in the Dark Tower series and in a little novel called Hearts in Atlantis, because the low men are constantly after Ted. Ted has a lot to do with the Dark Tower. Please go read the books.
This is your TED Talk.
But we also
Literally.
noticed, we talked about the Pennywise reference in Midworld. I think Ryan pointed it out. There was like a portal being opened to Midworld or another
Yeah.
world.
Oh,
We saw
1408.
a reference to 1408. It's like 14-08. 1408 is another Stephen King short story. Is it a short story or novelette? I don't remember.
It's a short.
It's a short, but it's also a
They turned it into a film. Had
it's a fantastic film.
Cusack
Cusack and
Yeah.
Samuel-
Jackson,
Samuel Jackson.
SLJ.
yeah.
Absolutely. Go see that one as well. It's really good. I don't know if that might be all I have for massive references for King's Dominion here.
I know there's a bunch. I wasn't looking for them as much this time since I wanted to be able to speak to what actually happened. But there was definitely I see it as both ways, either Flag or Mr. Mercedes. In the room, Walter painted a smiley face and a message on the wall. And I think that was one of Mr. Mercedes' emails.
Just said hello there.
Hello there.
Smiley face.
I think
Yeah.
that's what he used to send to the cop.
Mr. Mercedes is another novel by Stephen King that features like one of his most dastardly villains, Brady Hartsfield. That guy's a bag of shit.
And they made a series out of it. The first season is worth watching.
Wait, are you saying hello there, smiley face is an ominous reference?
Depends who you're talking to, I guess.
Well, there goes my Grinder profile.
No, I think that's perfect.
But Mr. Mercedes is actually was it like a trilogy or a quadrilogy of books? There's
The Mercedes itself is 3.
yeah,
And
so
then you have the offshoots.
yeah, you've got Mr. Mercedes, Finders Keepers, End of Watch, and The Outsider.
The Outsider, If It Bleeds.
If It Bleeds, that's another Holly story, and then Holly.
Holly
Which
itself
is-
is not out yet.
Yeah. So again, more books. Yay.
Yay.
Motherfucker's got some turnout.
He's killing trees, folks.
Gonna get some emails from the tree people now. So anyway, I'm not gonna go through all that shit. The differences in this that stand out the most to me that I would have changed, or I hope that they completely ignore on any future. We talked about the intro to Roland with his dad in the circle, hated it. The reason Roland is so broken is because of what Walter did to his parents and the fact that he was raised as a gunslinger.
Mm-hmm.
He's not raised to be a nice person. And Walter poisoned him, as long as he was in Gilead, which is kind of
Which is a non-issue in this book because
Right.
we don't learn anything from Idris Elba's character. All we see is a brief scene with his father, played by Dennis Haysworth.
Haysworth.
It's the guy from the Allstate
The
commercials.
Allstate commercial.
Who does a fantastic job. I thought that was great for the minutia that he was in there. And then we get these little tidbits when they're in like a village that just speak of Roland's backstory. But realistically, for those who enjoy the books, like everything is Roland's backstory.
Hey.
That's the reason why he's on this mission. So it's a little bit of a hard pill for me to swallow.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they mentioned, he's of the line of Eld, but they don't actually get into the fact that that's an Arthurian thing, which is, very symbolic.
They say one thing about his guns being made from the melted down Excalibur.
Yeah, that's right. That was like the only reference
So
that they make.
The exact quote
Yeah, it's bad.
from Matthew McConaughey's character is, I believe the Keystoners call it Excalibur.
Keystoners.
So he's calling
Stoners.
Keystone Earth
I know some of those guys.
people
Damn stoners.
Keystoners, and he's just telling us blatantly that it's from Excalibur. So again, in the books, this is all referenced. It's all implied. It's all thought of. It's you're made to think like, wow, okay, so I think they make a reference from Stephen Deshane is Roland's father in the books, and Roland is descended from the line of Eld. And I think they make a reference that say the line of Eld comes from King Arthur. Again,
Yeah, they do.
this is an otherworldly myth. So there's no direct representation of that. But this is also from like I call it a sister world, right?
Yeah.
So this is like the world next door. And one of the really cool things about the world next door is one of the opening scenes in The Gunslinger. Let me just like take this to you real quick. Imagine one of the opening scenes. You are with Roland. He's thirsty. He's been in the desert.
So thirsty.
And he opens up the Batwing doors at a saloon, right? Middle of nowhere. We have no idea where we are. We just know he's on an alien world, different than ours.
With the Beatles.
And then he hears Hey Jude.
Yeah.
Hey, Jude.
And they know,
Gonna get seed, boy.
yeah, in our world, Earth, normal Earth, I guess you can call us Keystone Earth, I guess.
I choose not to believe that.
But they call,
too late.
but like on Roland's world, what do they call Jesus? The man Jesus?
Yeah.
They call him the man Jesus or
Mhm.
whatever. So it's like they believe he's very much flesh and bone. A little bit different than what we would call him in normal, average, everyday conversation. So the difference between the worlds, but they bleed. They bleed in between. This movie did not have very much of that like bleed over. It was a staunch change for Jake and for Roland and for the Man in Black. We had digital portal, like
Yeah.
touch tone phones to like enter a portal. None of that's in the
and
books.
No mention of the rose in the
Not
movie,
one.
which was pivotal to the series, and they didn't reference it.
What do you think about that, Ryan?
I don't know. I didn't read the book.
Stargate. Does that help any?
No.
Okay, good.
Well, the movie focused on Walter, Roland, and Jake. 3 characters out of a huge cast. So, I think they did the best they could with the 3 characters, but the depth just isn't there.
No. And some of the stuff that I like it on its own merit, just like the fight scenes.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
not really a Dark Tower fight scene, but what they did with it, it's fun as hell to watch. There's some shots in there that I really, really like.
I think they stormtroopered Roland a little bit because he was a much better shot than they let him be in the movie. Because if you're that good of a shot, there wouldn't have been much movie
Yeah, in the
in the
book,
scenes they put him in.
every shot is a kill shot
Yeah.
unless it's against Walter.
I mean, it
essentially.
was except for
Yeah.
Walter.
No one
Yeah.
taught Roland the lesson that he taught Jake. Roland already knew the lesson of, I do not aim with my eye,
Well,
the whole thing.
Court taught Roland everything, but it was like being put in the army.
In the movie, Jake sort of like psychically reminds Roland and, cheers him on to that mantra. But Roland in the books does not need that reminder. That is his lifeblood.
Yeah. And I think because in the books, they talk about the shine, which they call it that because in The Shining, the psychic power is referred to as the shine.
Which Roland has, but not to a great extent.
A small amount. He was never strong in the shine, is what he says in the books.
Yeah, and the way that kind of works, like across the Kingiverse, different stories have different characters, but they all have these like same similarities. Like, Roland has a little bit of the shine. Jake has a lot of the shine, as we're led to believe. What are some of the other characters?
Well, I mean, go to Firestarter,
Yeah.
which it's more government enhanced,
Yeah, and then
or the Institute.
As is tradition.
the Institute, and then also, Danny Torrance is
Torrance, yeah.
the shining
He's got the
example.
shine.
Well,
of
the
shine.
Dreamcatcher book, it's not an alien. The kid has the shine so strong that it gives him
Yep.
cancer.
Duddits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Duddits in that one. There's references in it to where like some of those kids may have a little bit of the shine.
Talisman.
Yeah, definitely Jack. Jack Sawyer in the Talisman. So like this is an ability that crosses all across King's portfolio. And it's just interesting to see how he pulls it off from book to book. And it's actually nice that they at least referenced it in this movie.
Speaking of, let's talk about things that they put in the movie. It's not going to be in the same spot because it's not linear or anything but things that they included, and I'll give an example that I really paid attention to more this time. Roland gets stabbed by this poisonous creature, and it gets infected. And there's a scene where he's fighting in the woods, whatever that little village is called.
Yeah.
And he's using one hand to fight. And I liked that because in the books, very early on, he loses 3 fingers, his shooting fingers of his right hand, his dominant hand.
Half a gunslinger.
And in this, they kill his right hand with the poison, venom, whatever it is, and he's shooting with his left hand, putting that gun, holstering that gun, picking the other one up. I really like the way they used some of it just to be like, yeah, we understand that.
It's an understood thing.
Yeah. And there's a bunch of that stuff in the movie, but it's small and it's just for fans of the Dark Tower. That one stood out more this time than before.
Roland did love his aspirin.
Yeah. There's one
Aniston.
thing. There's one thing towards the end of this movie, and I have to bring it up. You guys are gonna hate me for this.
I'm with you.
So in the book, one of the things that made the original book, The Gunslinger, controversial and it made the sequel book, The Drawing of the Three, so good is the fact that Roland in the book takes this child, Jake, under his wing reluctantly. He does not want a kid with him because he's after the man in black. Like, that's the whole thing. And then Jake just kind of falls into his path. You hear that over and over and over in the series.
And he saves Jake's multiple times.
And he saves Jake multiple times. There's a scene in the book, and this is a very, very controversial piece, and this is why I have such a major issue with an adaptation like this that does not deliver, is in the book, there is a point where Roland and Jake are under this mountain, call it the Mines of Moria, call it whatever you want.
They're literally on a mine.
They're on a mine cart,
path.
a broken minecart rail, and they're worried that the steel is not going to support their weight. Anyway, Roland's been after the Man in Black for so long, Jake showed up in his path. And there comes a time in the book, it's a very serious moment, to where Roland basically is halfway across the trestle chasing the Man in Black, and Jake is hanging on by a thread. And Roland has to make a decision. Do I continue my mission to the Man in Black and continue my mission to the tower? Or do I save this boy? And in most popular fiction, in most heroic books, what do you think that option is? Save the boy.
Mm-hmm.
Forsake your destiny, save the boy. This is one of the few times in fiction that ain't the case. And he lets the boy fall. And it's really fucking tragic. It hits you like a ton of bricks. And then Roland goes on with his fucking adventure. And you're just like, what a fucking dick.
And Roland
Well,
knows exactly what he's doing.
And he
because
knows.
But-
Walter's standing there saying, you can catch me if you let him fall. You'll have time. If you go back, I'll get away. Like, he's telling him
He's
directly,
taunting him. Yeah.
if you don't do this, I'm gone.
I'm telling you, this is why this is a very compelling book. Please go read it. I cannot say that enough. But anyway,
Roland had flaws.
so there's a point in this movie where Jake is strapped to the chair, and they're using the Man in Black and the Man in Black's team. They're through a portal. They strap Jake into this chair, and they're using his mind to help break the beam. And there's a point where you see Roland point the gun. And then there's like a little small action sequence where he shoots the Man in Black off of some sort of fucking stupid ricochet.
Adam's got a theory.
And I have a theory here. I hope that it would stand up. I may be totally like full of shit here, but he shoots, and it like shoots the headpiece off the kid. And then Jake jumps through the portal back to Roland. But then when he jumps back through the portal to Roland, like, I'm telling you, it looks like reshoots. And the kid looks like he's 2.5 years older than he was in the original scene. So I think, like, what I would like to think is, like, the original script was, does Roland have to sacrifice that boy
Right.
and put a bullet in his face? That's a much harsher way.
That'd be more fitting to the
It'd be
book
more.
itself
It'd be more fitting to
sacrifice Jake at least
sacrifice-
once.
Yeah, sacrifice Jake
At least one time.
At least one time.
to
if not,
save the tower.
2 would be optimal.
Yeah,
5 or 6.
that's where my brain is, and I may be totally misconstruing that, but like when you look at some of that, I think James and I were kind of debating about that, but like the scene directly after that, the editing, the kid looks like he's like 17 years old. And I feel like we were dealing with like a 13, 14-year-old kid. And I was like, that has to be reshoots. And I feel like this kid went through puberty. You know?
Well, and after you said that, there's one more scene after with Roland and Jake, and
He
That-
walks like a grown man.
that could be a reshoot, because if you're looking at that scene, I was paying attention this time after you said that, and there's nothing, they could have done that in an afternoon. There's no special effects. There's no sound.
it's a
them
walk away.
having a conversation at a hot dog cart and walking into a door.
It's a walk away scene. And I feel like all that was reshoots.
Could have been. I thought he was going to shoot him in the movie theater. I remember
could
when he
be.
freed him, I was like, why?
I think you and I talked about that.
Yeah.
This was like, what, 8 years ago when this movie
I mean,
came
Roland's
out,
character
whatever?
was defined in the books
Something like
by
that. He
his
posted that,
loss. And the only loss
Right.
he experienced in the movie was his dad.
Yeah.
And that's so brief and fleeting.
Yeah, and then they use that to justify the I've forgotten the face of my father lines. That was the only justification for that line in the movie, was the fact that he lost his father that way. That's what his father used to tell him. Which
Yeah.
maybe in the books that was also true, but
Well, I mean, if I were scripting this personally, I would have, letting Roland fall or letting Jake fall from a railroad trestle is a lot easier to swallow than
Shooting him in the fucking face.
putting
Yeah.
a bullet in his face. And so, I'm probably wrong on that, but I just feel like there's something there where I'm like, man, this had to be a reshoot, because there has to be something to where like Jake originally died.
well, again, spoilers. This time toward the books, but Jake doesn't make it.
Yeah, Jake does not make it.
In any version of this except the movie.
Yeah.
And
But I will say,
and he's not even the first loss. You know, he's not even the last loss.
Yeah, in the books.
Because damn, there's some other losses that you know, take your emotional journey further in the books than Jake.
Well, I did want Adam to talk to the scene where the Roland turns the sound off at his head. When the guy takes Jake and he's in the middle of the village, and he goes out and shoots through the window, the mirrors, and the
the whole scene where the mantra, I don't shoot with my eye, I shoot with my heart. I don't shoot with my hand, I shoot with my heart. That kind of thing. That's a mantra that these gunslingers have.
Yep.
And there's a moment where Jake gets captured in this village, and they're scooting him off across the village, and Roland just extends his arm, and he is not looking, and I think it's his left hand, because I think, like Rob said, his right hand was jacked up, and he just like concentrates for a hot minute. You know, you're led to believe this animal instinct, this Indian instinct, this otherworldly, midworldly instinct kicks in, and he fires one shot, and he kills the guy, and it frees Jake. And to me, that's what the Gunslinger is all about. Just that one scene, it kind of collects it all.
Well, and you compare that to the last, and I remember somebody when this came out, they're like, why did they make Roland a superhero? And I'd forgotten about him getting tackled out the window through the bus. And it's the only time they really do anything like that, which Sayer, who Jackie Earle Haley's character is,
Yeah, Jackie Earle.
is a very powerful either vampire or Taheen or something. In the book, he's a vampire. I don't think they go as far as to bother explaining what he is. They just gave him some sweet contacts.
God, read the books.
Yep.
Read the books. That's in Song of Susanna, book 6.
No, that's the beginning of 7.
Right. Okay. Yeah, but the development.
They walk into the Dixie Pig at the
Yeah.
end of that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
We need a 7-hour podcast about all this.
Right.
We could go on and on about this shit, but
But this is the movie. This is what we didn't get.
this is really for Ryan. This is really for anyone that has read the books and watched the movie. These are the things we're seeing as King fans. Ryan, you have anything toward the actual movie itself?
Yeah,
As
since
a
I didn't
non-reader?
read the books.
Yeah.
You know, being that it's Stephen King, I was surprised at first, the fact that it's only 90 minutes long.
Yeah.
I said this before we started tonight. My automatic assumption is, isn't this a 3-hour movie?
Should have been.
Yeah. Apparently multiple 3-hour movies. But
Yeah.
I expected a whole lot more character development, world building, all that stuff, and you get thrust into it almost immediately.
Yeah, I think
And there is, like, you guys all know because you read the books, but I'm just kind of like, half of the character development I saw came from what you guys were talking about, not what
Right.
I saw on the screen, because it wasn't there, basically.
Well,
like,
it
they're just,
doesn't exist.
as far as the movie
I mean,
went,
aside from Jake, like, there was some character development with Jake, like understanding that, what was that guy, Lon or something like that?
Yeah.
That he wasn't his real dad. He was having struggles at school, having these visions and everything. But it rolled right into Walter, right into Roland, and there was they're here,
Yeah.
figure out what they do.
Didn't really take a beat. They had the seer moment, but they didn't really do anything with that as far as explaining.
I mean, the movie focused on the father-son relationship between, Idris's character and the father, and then Jake as Idris's character's, Roland's character,
There you go.
Roland's son, because Roland didn't have an actual son, but Jake was his surrogate son, in the same way that the movie was portraying. His father's like, carry on the tradition, do this, do this, do this.
Mildred's
That was as true as we got to the relationship from the books into the movie. I felt.
Yeah, but I mean,
Did it feel like a father-son relationship or no?
It did. You get it from that scene, but that was the only real scene with
that.
like with a whole lot of character building for him. Otherwise, they're just, oh, I'm doing my thing.
Yeah,
Well, that phrase right there, character building, we didn't have enough time, and
Well, yeah.
I'm taking the books out of this, and you just want to have character building. The way this character of Jake is set up, he trouble with his mom, trouble with his stepdad in this film, needs a father figure. And I do feel like one thing they accomplished is by the end of the film, by Roland saving him, and Jake having to walk him through, Roland through, like, how to, like, things to say. Like, the hospital scene.
The fish out of water was the best part.
The fish out of the water. Yeah, the fish out of water. The hospital scene is one of my all-time favorites for this film because it is that, like, flip the roles on its head. Jake's basically like, don't say anything.
So maybe I misspoke. Not necessarily character building for Roland, but there is no backstory for him in the film.
Agree. Totally agree.
So I'm just like, I'm watching this. I'm like, okay, Matthew McConaughey's the bad guy. Idris Elba is the good guy.
Yeah, there was a whole book devoted to Roland's backstory.
Jake is somewhere in between.
A major,
maybe.
The two sources of backstory we get for Roland on this are from small quips that Matthew McConaughey's Harry character says, and B, when they're in that village and they mention Gilead, they mention, oh, you're the last gunslinger, but it's all really just.
It's ham-fisted,
it's
right?
passing comments as you're
it's
in
not,
the scene.
It's like they straddled that fence for the movie between people who had read the book and you'll want to see these characters, and people who had never read the book and here's a story for you. And it didn't really land for either group. I don't feel.
Take this for example. When they're in that village, they give that minimalist backstory of Roland. We're talking about portals. We're talking about all those things. Take a second. Just take a second. If we're led to believe, I'm putting my Taylor hat on here.
Oh boy.
Take a second, and if we're supposed to believe that he's this, like, wonderful man from Gilead, he's the last of the gunslingers, he's this, he's that, give me a priest or a priestess in this, like, small community that takes him aside, goes and, like, prays with him, and she's like, I know you've been sent here. I know the old stories. I know what you're meant to do.
To recognize the significance of his.
Recognize the significance. That is a 7 seconds of film, maybe 10, that just makes you, the viewer, believe that someone else in the story believes in Roland. You know what I mean? Like, take that extra couple seconds and just give us, like, maybe he is the chosen one. Maybe he is.
I think
this. You know what I mean?
I think you're nailing it right there. Again, they tried to split it and make everybody happy, but you can't.
Yeah.
Either you're going to make people happy that have never read the book, or you're going to make the people that have read the book happy. And honestly, for a movie, I would have made people that have never read the book happy. If I'm only make one movie, I'm going to try and just take it and make those people happy, because that's all you're going to get. You're never going to make the book people happy with that short of a film.
Yeah.
I don't feel that happy right now.
No, you should not feel that happy.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, some of the
they straddled the fence. That's what I'm saying. Is they straddled the fence and they didn't make either group happy, and that was the mistake.
I did enjoy some of the action scenes, though. While
agree,
not at all realistic. I know he's also not from Keystone Earth.
Keystone
Earth.
Yeah.
There we go.
He's not a Keystoner.
Yeah, he's not a keystoner.
But
So his abilities are maybe all the gunslingers can do that. I don't know because there was no backstory on what the gunslingers were capable of for me.
He's otherworldly in those moments where he is literally like reloading his 6-shooters.
Yeah, that's some Wade Wilson shit right there.
It's Wade
Very
Wilson. It's Matrixy and it's beyond belief. But at those points, this is a man that's not from our planet, you know. And it's like, okay, cool. I'm down with that. It's just the rest of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
now
mean, John Wick could do it.
you've got me reimagining this with the casting of Lawrence Fishburne.
I don't need massive guns.
But
Stop trying to reload and reload.
but there is something to say there's minor things in this film, specifically with Roland, that were a huge misstep. Where, like, I think there's a scene where he's telling Jake to go to bed, and he's laying down to go to bed, fireside.
He was already laying down halfway asleep when he told him to go to bed.
And it's like, man, that's not Roland. Like Roland is the guy standing on the edge of the fucking cliff telling you to go to bed while the hawk is like flying over in the distance, you know, like caw, you know, like
Relax, guy.
he's that guy that he doesn't sleep. Like you read about him in the books and it's like,
Yeah.
man, this guy is so fucking cool. Like he's the coolest motherfucker, and he's not sleeping. He does not take moments. And when he does take moments to explain some shit, it's like some shit that you're like, this is life knowledge. He does not coddle Jake. You know what I mean?
He doesn't coddle anybody.
Like there's a scene in the books where they get done, I think, killing an entire fucking village. And he's sitting there rolling a smoke, right? And he's about to light up a smoke. And Jake's like, roll me up one too. Jake's fucking 12 years old. And Roland's like, all right,
okay,
don't make it a habit. You know, and it's like, that's Roland. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
It's not a guy that's going to be like half asleep being like, get to bed, boy, in the middle of fucking nowhere. You know,
Well,
it's just wrong.
When Roland recovered Jake for the second time, along with Eddie and Susanna in the books, you know, he recognized them as part of his quartet and trained them as gunslingers. All of them gunslingers, just like him. And in the books, it was understood that they were his equals, and that they would have to do things that he was no longer able to do.
In the books, they also kind of, they implied,
at least for a little while,
fairly heavily, that if you are a gunslinger, it's already decided. Like, I don't know if the tower decides it or whatever, but they had it in them from the beginning. Like, when Eddie fights the first time, Roland's like, holy shit, like, this guy, he's never done this before, and he's doing it. He's John Wicking without ever going to any training.
Yeah, but they also fought a giant half-cyborg fucking bear with a satellite on his face that was full of fucking weird maggots, like, in its face. Like,
as a woman.
I think I missed that character.
Yeah, so, like, we're not going to get too far-fetched here. You know?
Don't mind the talking train.
What was it?
And I think in that scene in
I
the
didn't even fall
books,
asleep during this film.
I think Eddie's, like, in a tree, and I think the bear...
There was
topples the tree and Eddie falls out of it like a bitch because he's like, I'm fucked up, you know. So
there was a brand in the book, something Positronics, that was recognized.
North Central Positronics.
North Central Positronics, that was known for creating these things.
I've read these books a few times.
Yeah,
same here. They did make a reference to Sombra Corporation.
They even had a
truck.
Tet Corporation.
Well,
sign.
just referencing Positronics is an Isaac Asimov reference, because where did Stephen King get that? Nowhere other than Asimov.
Yeah. Well, and going back to him being the baddest cowboy, I mean, this whole thing, King said he thought it up because he had finished reading Lord of the Rings again, and he was watching the spaghetti westerns with Clint Eastwood. He's like, oh man, let me just smash those together. So he did. And that's where this thing came from.
Him and Tarantino.
So those things are on purpose. A lot of that stuff.
Yeah, there's a Larry McMurtry kind of influence in there as well too.
Yeah,
for sure.
And all based off of the poem Oh, Child to the Dark Tower. No, Jesus.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the poem.
Child rolling to the Dark Tower came, I think, something like that.
You know, you're Stephen King. You're just reading poetry and randomly, spark a series.
There's
Yeah,
there
expanding 40 years.
Just Stephen King things.
if you do read the books and you make it all the way to the end, and you make it all the way through the books, and you enjoy them, and you make it all the way to the end, there's a rereading, I think in the audiobook, and I think it's also in Dark Tower 7, of the original Child Rolling to the Dark Tower Came. There's a rereading and a repost of that he rewrote it in there, and holy shit, it's pretty powerful when you have read the entire book series, and then you go back and you're like, huh.
It was a good addition.
Yeah. And is the coda's in every book, right? In every book 7?
Yep.
No spoilers on the end of it, but my goodness, go read this series.
Yeah. I think that's a good spot. We unpacked a lot.
Yep.
It's a lot left to unpack. But that's for our next 6 Dark Tower podcasts. We will be doing the books next. God.
Sold.
You're gonna have to give me a minute.
I want to do it, but yeah, you're going to have to catch up, bud. Okay.
The Gunslinger is a quick read. That's not a very big.
It's the shortest of the 7.
Let's see.
Spectacular.
And then I've got some supplementary reading for you. I'll just go stack it up over there. It's going to take 3 trips.
Yep.
Put them in the box with art.
All 72,000 pages that you need to catch up on.
Yeah, exactly. If you're a Dark Tower fan, go. Is that the Oscar music?
It's the wrap it up music.
Good timing.
Oh shit.
Alan's ready to go home, go to bed.
Alan's been napping in the corner for 2 hours, and he just woke up and told us to shut up.
Alan's like, "Are we gonna watch this damn movie or not?"
Do you know Jeff Budd?
Does he work for Music Works in Bentonville?
On J Street? Mention this podcast and save money. Go talk to Greg Price. Bother Greg. Just go ask. If Greg's not there, ask for his home phone number.
What about your books? What are we
I can't really talk to my books yet. I'm kind of on a weird spot right now with my books.
I'm doing my best here to promote you.
You're doing great. I've pulled everything out because I can't talk about my shit, and then I'm not trading stuff for other people for advertising. So I did want to ask how your world's going. Since we have you here.
Busy as always. Graphic design, doing it. Ready to work on your next book cover.
Hell yeah.
Or posters or whatever we need to
Or
work on.
children's book.
Oh, yes, the children's book. We do need to work on that.
Yep.
What's the, what,
I've never heard a man say, "Let's work on your children's book," any more ominously than that.
Did you hear his laugh?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do we title it? You did the title.
Kindergarten is bullshit.
That's it.
Well, I don't feel so bad for just thinking about it. Well, great. You guys pull some more things out.
It's literally all we do, James. Isn't that why you come here?
Maybe.
Yeah, we had a couple random ideas like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
Well, just I know we can't talk about details, but Rob here is in talks with editors, and new chapters and new doors are opening for him, potentially with a lot of his books ongoing series that he's been working on, putting a hell of a lot of work into it. So talking with words is an awesome thing that he does with the crew here, but he's also working on some side projects that are finally getting some legs, and he's got deadlines, and he's been working diligently to try to make this happen. More info to come, and I hope you all read them when they come out.
Yeah, one way or the other, Saturn 3 will be coming all over you.
Indeed.
Don't know. I'll have more details at the end of the year. That's really all I can say about it right now. So hopefully we'll have more Saturn hitting you in the mouth with MC.
We do have a Halloween giveaway coming up.
Oh, we need to do that here in a minute.
Yep.
If you're not watching our YouTube and staying with our socials, get on it because we are going to be doing giveaways for Halloween over October. My voice just went to shit there all of a sudden.
As it does.
Long but short at the same time because we could have gone so much longer.
That's what she keeps telling me.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, Alan, thanks for coming, dude.
Yes. Glad I could have
When did you get here, Alan?
It's been feeding his
There
fish
it is.
over there.
Is Chris still here?
Chris, he's in one of the back rooms. Taylor's downstairs shitting
Still.
still.
Has he still got dog hair all over him?
Yeah.
Always.
Sticks to the walls.
Can't picture
he's
him
a husky
otherwise.
mix.
I thought he was one of those bad werewolves that he just turns into like a mini poodle when in full moon.
No, I think his normal form is werewolf. I think his regular form, when it's a full moon, is just regular man. And that's when he comes on the pod.
Regular man's a stretch.
Yeah. There's going to be a political pod soon with him and Shay.
It's just going to be him and Shay. All of us are going to be like, fuck this. Not touching it.
Early November, kids.
Jesus. Hey, if you like The Dark Tower, go watch this movie.
Yep.
We'll do more Dark Tower stuff later. Charlie?